At 4:51 p.m., the CEO was standing in my driveway, not calling, not emailing, actually standing there, next to his black Mercedes, looking like a man who'd just watched his entire company catch fire. His tie was loosened, jacket crumpled in the back seat, face flushed red, from panic or embarrassment or both. 7.5 hours earlier, I'd walked out of his office after he told me to know my place. Now he was at my house, at the end of my driveway, holding a folder of papers and looking like he was about to beg. And he was going to beg, because in the 7 hours since I'd resigned, 3 major clients had pulled their contracts. The company's largest product launch in 5 years had collapsed. The technical infrastructure I'd built over 12 years was failing in ways that nobody else understood. And the Ivy League COO he'd hired at double my salary, the one who supposedly understood business better than I ever could, had just admitted she had no idea how to fix any of it. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me back up and tell you how a CEO who thought my education wasn't good enough learned the most expensive lesson of his career, in less than 8 hours. I spent 12 years as the chief technology officer at a SaaS company providing workflow automation software for healthcare systems. We weren't huge, about $90 million in annual recurring revenue, 230 employees, 47 clients, mostly regional hospital networks and medical practice groups. But we were profitable, growing steadily, and our technology actually worked, which in the SaaS world is rarer than you'd think. I'd been there since the beginning, not the founding team, but close. Employee number 8, hired when the company was still operating out of a converted warehouse with folding tables and second-hand office chairs. Back when nobody was sure if we'd make payroll next month. Back when success meant landing one more client, then another, until suddenly we had something real. Before we dive deeper, hit that like button and subscribe to Retribution Stories so you never miss workplace karma like this. Drop a comment below telling us where you're watching from and if you've ever had a boss who valued credentials over actual competence. We read every single comment and your stories fuel our content. My job was building the platform, all of it, the back-end architecture that processed medical workflow data, the front-end interfaces that nurses and doctors actually used, the integration systems that connected with existing hospital software, the security frameworks that kept patient information protected and HIPAA compliant, the scaling infrastructure that handled growth from 1,000 users to over 200,000. It wasn't just coding, it was architecture decisions that would affect the company for years, database structures that needed to handle medical data with zero tolerance for corruption, API designs that had to be stable because hundreds of other systems depended on them, security protocols that could withstand audit after audit from hospital IT departments who rightfully didn't trust new vendors. I didn't do it alone. I built a team, hired 18 brilliant engineers over the years, mentored them, created a culture where technical excellence mattered more than politics, where we did things right instead of fast, where we understood that healthcare software isn't like consumer apps. You can't move fast and break things when those things include patient care workflows. Our uptime was 99.97%. Our security audit history was perfect. Our client retention rate was 94%. In 12 years, we'd never had a major data breach, never had a catastrophic system failure, never had a client leave because our technology failed them. The CEO appreciated that, or at least, I thought he did. Let's call him Richard. 56 years old, founded the company 18 years ago, former healthcare administrator who saw an opportunity to digitize medical workflows. Smart guy, good with clients. Understood the healthcare industry deeply. But as the company grew, he started feeling out of his depth operationally. The board started pushing him. We need professional management. We need to scale beyond founder-led operations. We need executive leadership that can take us from 90 million to 200 million in revenue. Richard was a healthcare guy, not a tech guy or an operations guy. He knew his limitations. So in August, the board brought in a new COO, Chief Operating Officer. Someone to handle the operational complexity Richard didn't want to manage anymore. Someone to professionalize systems and processes. Someone to prepare the company for the next stage of growth. They hired someone named Victoria. 43 years old, MBA from an Ivy League school I'm not going to name but you'd recognize. Previously VP of Operations at a much larger tech company. 15 years of executive experience. Impressive resume, full of accomplishments at companies with billions in revenue. On paper, she was perfect. In reality, she was a disaster. Victoria arrived with very clear ideas about how things should work. She'd come from a company with thousands of employees and massive operational budgets. She expected the same level of resources and structure here. When she discovered we didn't have those things, she decided we were unsophisticated and needed to be fixed. Her first month, she scheduled listening sessions with every department head. I met with her for 90 minutes, walked her through our technical architecture, our development processes, our security protocols, our scaling plans. She took notes, asked questions that suggested she didn't really understand technical operations but didn't want to admit it. At the end of the meeting, she said, "This all seems very complicated. In my experience, technology operations should be simpler and more streamlined. I'll be reviewing everything with an eye toward optimization." Optimization. That word should have been a warning sign. Month 2. Victoria started implementing changes. New project management frameworks borrowed from her previous company. New reporting structures that added layers of approval for technical decisions. New budget processes that required extensive justification for tools and infrastructure that we'd been using successfully for years. The engineers hated it. Suddenly, every decision required 3 meetings and 2 levels of approval. Deployment processes that used to take hours now took days. Simple infrastructure upgrades required PowerPoint presentations explaining ROI and strategic alignment. I pushed back. Explained that healthcare software has different requirements than consumer tech. Explained that our processes existed for good reasons: compliance, security, stability. Explained that adding bureaucracy doesn't improve quality, it just slows everything down and frustrates good engineers. Victoria's response: "You're resistant to change. That's understandable. You've been doing things the same way for years. But modern organizations require structured processes and proper governance. My experience at larger companies has shown me what works." Her experience at larger companies. That phrase became her justification for everything. Any pushback got met with the same response. Her experience at larger companies proved she was right and we were wrong. Month 3. Things got worse. Victoria started questioning technical architecture decisions. Why are we using this database system? Why is the infrastructure configured this way? Why do we have these security protocols? I'd explain the reasons: performance requirements, compliance mandates, cost optimization, client needs. Every decision had been made carefully, with input from people who actually understood the technical implications. Victoria's response was always some variation of, "That's not how we did it at my previous company. We used different tools and they worked fine. I think we should consider modernizing our approach." The problem wasn't that she was suggesting improvements. The problem was that she couldn't tell the difference between actual improvements and just doing things differently because different felt more sophisticated. She wanted to change things to prove she was adding value, not because the changes actually made sense. Month 4. Victoria made her first major technical decision without consulting me. She'd negotiated a contract with a new cloud infrastructure provider. Better pricing, she said. More modern platform, she claimed. Strategic partnership that would position us for growth. Except the new provider didn't meet our security requirements for healthcare data. Their compliance certifications were incomplete. Their SLA guarantees were weaker than our current provider. And migrating our entire infrastructure would take 6 months of engineering time while introducing massive risk. I sent her a detailed memo explaining why the decision was problematic. She responded with a meeting invite. Just the 2 of us. Her office. Door closed. "I've read your memo," she said, not inviting me to sit down. "I appreciate your technical perspective. But you need to understand that business decisions aren't always made on purely technical criteria. There are strategic considerations, financial implications, relationship factors, things that, frankly, engineers don't always see. This isn't about technical preferences," I said carefully. "This is about compliance and security. Healthcare data has regulatory requirements. We can't just switch providers because the pricing is better. I've reviewed the compliance documentation. Everything is in order. Their high-trust certification is pending. We can't process patient data on their platform until that's complete. That's a technicality. It'll be resolved soon." "It's not a technicality. It's a legal requirement. If we migrate before certification is complete and then have any kind of data incident, we're liable. We could lose clients. We could face regulatory penalties. Victoria's expression hardened. I've been managing operations at tech companies for 15 years. I understand risk management. What I'm hearing from you is resistance to change dressed up as concern about compliance. You're comfortable with the current provider, and you don't want to deal with migration complexity. That's not what this is. Then what is it? It's me trying to prevent you from making a decision that could seriously damage the company because you don't understand the regulatory environment we operate in. The silence that followed was heavy. Victoria stood up from behind her desk. She was tall, wore expensive suits, had the kind of presence that commanded rooms. Right now, she was using that presence to make clear I'd crossed a line. Let me be very clear, she said, voice cold. I report to the CEO. You report to me, as of last month's reorganization. I make operational decisions. You implement them. That's the structure. If you can't work within that structure, we have a problem. I report to you for administrative purposes. Technical decisions still go through me. That's been my role for 12 years. Your role is changing. The company is growing. We need proper operational discipline. That means decisions get made at the appropriate level, which is my level, and then get executed by the technical team, your level. I stared at her. You're saying you're going to make technical architecture decisions despite having no technical background. I'm saying I'm going to make business decisions that sometimes involve technical components, and I expect the technical team to support those decisions professionally. I walked out of that meeting knowing this wasn't going to work, but I'd been at the company for 12 years. I had equity. I had relationships. I had a team depending on me. I couldn't just walk away without trying to fix it. So I went to Richard, scheduled time on his calendar, sat down in his office, and explained the situation. Victoria was making decisions without understanding the technical implications. She was dismissing valid concerns as resistance to change. She was creating conflict with the engineering team. We needed to clarify roles and decision-making authority before something broke. Richard listened, nodded. Then he said the words that would eventually cost his company millions of dollars. Victoria went to an Ivy League business school. She has 15 years of executive experience at successful companies. She understands how to run operations at scale. I trust her judgment. You need to find a way to work with her. Richard, this isn't about personalities. This is about technical decisions that affect our ability to serve clients safely and compliantly. She doesn't have the background to make those decisions. She doesn't need technical background. That's what she has you for. She makes business decisions. You figure out how to implement them. That's how organizations work. That's how organizations fail. Business decisions and technical decisions aren't separate things in a software company. You can't make good business decisions if you don't understand the technical implications. Richard's expression shifted, not angry, but something colder, disappointed. Victoria has an MBA from one of the best programs in the country. She's managed operations at companies 10 times our size. I think she understands business implications better than someone whose background is writing code. That stung. 12 years of building the platform that generated $90 million in revenue, and he was reducing my contribution to writing code. I'm not saying she doesn't understand business, I said, keeping my voice level. I'm saying she doesn't understand this business. Healthcare software isn't like consumer tech. The stakes are different. The requirements are different. Experience at other companies doesn't automatically translate. You're being territorial. I get it. You've been the technical authority here for a long time. Now there's someone above you in the hierarchy, and you're uncomfortable with that. But you need to adjust. Victoria is here to stay. Either you figure out how to work with her, or we'll find someone who can. There it was, the ultimatum. Adjust or leave. I left his office and went back to my desk. Spent the rest of the day thinking. That evening, I talked to my wife, explained the situation. She'd heard me vent about work before, but this was different. This wasn't frustration about a difficult project or a disagreeing with a colleague. This was fundamental. The CEO had made clear that my technical expertise was less valuable than Victoria's credentials and her experience at companies that had nothing to do with healthcare software. What do you want to do? My wife asked. I don't know. Part of me wants to stay and fight. But Richards made his position clear. Victoria's in charge. My job is to implement her decisions regardless of whether they make sense. Can you do that? No, I can't watch her break things I've built and pretend I'm okay with it. Then you know what you need to do. She was right. I knew. The next morning, I went to Victoria's office at 9:15 a.m. She was reviewing something on her laptop, wearing another expensive suit, looking like someone who'd never doubted herself in her life. "Do you have a minute?" I asked. She glanced up. "Brief one. I have a board prep meeting at 9:30. "This won't take long. I'm resigning. Effective immediately." Her expression didn't change. No surprise. No concern. Just a slight nod like I'd confirmed something she'd expected. Can I ask why? We have fundamental disagreements about technical decision-making, and I don't see that resolving. Rather than continue creating friction, I'm stepping aside. What about your responsibilities? We have a product launch in 2 weeks. Multiple client implementations in progress. You can't just walk away. I can, and I am. All technical documentation is current. My team knows the systems. You have my architecture diagrams, my deployment procedures, my security protocols. Everything you need is documented. We'll need transition time, at least 2 weeks. My employment is at will. I'm exercising my right to resign immediately. Victoria leaned back in her chair. This is unprofessional. You're abandoning responsibilities out of ego because you don't want to report to someone with more business experience than you. I'm leaving because the CEO made clear he values your credentials over my actual knowledge of the systems I built. That's his choice. But it's also my choice not to stay and watch what happens next. What's that supposed to mean? It means you're going to make decisions based on your experience at companies that have nothing to do with healthcare software. Those decisions are going to break things. And when they do, you're going to need someone to fix them. That's not going to be me. I walked out before she could respond. Went to my desk, grabbed my personal items, laptop, coffee mug, a plant my wife had given me, a framed photo of my kids. Everything fit in a backpack. I opened my personal email and typed out a resignation letter. 2 paragraphs, professional, clean. Sent it to Richard, Victoria, and HR. Effective immediately. Then I sent a message to my engineering team in our private Slack channel. I've resigned. Nothing to do with any of you. You're all brilliant, and I'm proud of everything we've built together. Take care of each other. By 9:23 a.m., I was walking across the parking lot to my car. 12 years of work. 12 years of building something from almost nothing into something that mattered. Reduced to a backpack and a resignation email. I drove home, sat in my kitchen, made coffee, tried to process what I'd just done. My phone was already buzzing with messages from the team. Shocked messages, concerned messages. What happened? Why did you leave? What are we supposed to do now? I responded to each one individually, told them to stay professional, work with Victoria, follow the documentation. They'd be fine. But I knew they wouldn't be fine, because documentation can't replace institutional knowledge. And Victoria didn't have the background to know when she was making mistakes. At 11:34 a.m., I got my first call. One of the senior engineers. "Dude, Victoria is freaking out. We're trying to finalize the deployment plan for the product launch, and she's asking questions that don't make sense. She wants to change the infrastructure configuration, but doesn't understand why it's set up the way it is. Tell her to read the documentation." We did. She says the documentation is too technical. She wants someone to explain it in business terms. Then explain it in business terms. You're smart. You can translate. She's not listening. She keeps saying things like, "At my previous company, we did it differently," and trying to change things without understanding what they do. I didn't respond to that. What could I say? I'd warned everyone this would happen. Now they were living it. At 12:07 p.m., I got a call from one of our largest clients, hospital network in the Southeast. They'd been with us for 7 years. I knew their CIO personally. Let's call him Greg. "Hey, I just got an email from Victoria that your company is migrating to a new cloud infrastructure provider. What's going on? We didn't get any advance notice about infrastructure changes." My stomach dropped. When is this migration supposed to happen? According to the email, they're starting migration next week, but the new provider isn't on our approved vendor list. We can't have patient data processed on systems that haven't been through our security review. If you migrate without our approval, we'll have to suspend service until we complete our audit. That could take months. "Greg, I'm not with the company anymore as of this morning. But you need to tell Victoria what you just told me. If she migrates without client approval, she's going to cause major service disruptions. You left? This morning? Yes. Does Victoria know how to handle this kind of situation? No, she doesn't. Silence on the phone. Then, we're going to have to put a hold on the product launch until we understand what's happening with infrastructure. I can't risk service disruption for political reasons on your end. He hung up. One of our largest clients just put a hold on a launch that represented about $8 million in projected first-year revenue. Because Victoria had sent out migration notices without understanding that healthcare clients require approval for infrastructure changes. At 12:41 p.m., another client called. Same issue. Migration notice without proper vetting. They were suspending all new deployments until this was resolved. At 1:15 p.m., a third client. But this one was worse. They weren't just suspending new deployments. They were invoking the termination clause in their contract. 30 days notice. They were leaving. That contract was worth $12 million annually. My phone kept buzzing. Engineers texting me. What's happening? Clients are calling angry. Victoria is in her office with the door closed. Richard is demanding emergency meetings. Everything is falling apart. I didn't respond. This wasn't my problem anymore. I'd warned them. They'd ignored me. Now they were learning the expensive way that credentials don't replace competence. At 2:33 p.m., Richard called. I let it go to voicemail. He left a message. We need to talk immediately. There's been some miscommunication with clients about infrastructure changes. I need your help sorting this out. Call me back. Miscommunication. That's what he was calling it. At 3:17 p.m., Victoria called. I didn't answer. Her voicemail. I need you to call me back. There are some technical issues that need clarification. I'm sure we can resolve any concerns you had about working here. At 4:08 p.m., Richard called again. This voicemail was different. His voice was strained. Please call me back. This is urgent. We've had 3 clients threaten to terminate contracts. We need you back here immediately to help fix this situation. 3 clients. That was about $32 million in annual recurring revenue at risk. More than 1/3 of the company's total revenue. All in the space of about 5 hours. At 4:51 p.m., I was sitting in my home office updating my LinkedIn profile when I heard a car pull into my driveway. I looked out the window and saw Richard getting out of his black Mercedes. He wasn't calling anymore. He was here. I walked outside. Richard was standing next to his car, holding a folder, looking like he'd aged 5 years in 5 hours. We need to talk, he said without preamble. I don't work for you anymore. I know. That's why I'm here. I need to ask you to come back. That's not going to happen. He opened the folder, pulled out papers. I have a consulting agreement here. Your rate, your terms, $650 per hour. Minimum 30 hours per week, whether you work them or not. Direct reporting to me, not Victoria. Full authority over all technical decisions. No interference from anyone. 1-month commitment to stabilize the situation. I looked at the papers, looked at him. This morning you told me to know my place. You said Victoria's Ivy League MBA meant she understood business better than I understood the systems I built. Now you're offering me $650 an hour to fix what she broke. His face flushed red. I made a mistake. A very expensive mistake. Victoria sent migration notices to clients without understanding approval processes. 3 clients have threatened to terminate. 2 more have suspended new deployments. We're looking at $30+ million in revenue at risk. The product launch is delayed indefinitely. The engineering team is in chaos. Victoria admitted an hour ago that she doesn't know how to fix any of it. Where is Victoria now? In her office, probably updating her resume. The board is meeting tomorrow morning, and her termination is first on the agenda. I let that sink in. You're firing her? We have to. She nearly destroyed the company in less than 24 hours. Her Ivy League MBA didn't prepare her for healthcare software. Her experience at larger companies didn't translate. You were right. I should have listened. Yes, you should have. I'm asking you to come back. Not permanently. Just long enough to stabilize things. Save the client relationships. Get the product launch back on track. Help us find someone competent to replace you long term. 1 month. Name your terms. I thought about it. Part of me wanted to say no out of principle. They disrespected me, dismissed my expertise, told me to know my place. Why should I save them from their own bad decisions? But another part of me thought about the engineers on my team, talented people who had nothing to do with this disaster. Thought about clients who'd trusted us for years. Thought about the platform I'd spent 12 years building. Did I really want to watch it all collapse because Richard had made one terrible hiring decision? $650 an hour, I said. 40-hour minimum weekly guarantee regardless of actual hours worked. That's $26,000 per week. $104,000 for the month, paid weekly in advance. Done. Direct reporting to you. Victoria doesn't speak to me, doesn't email me, doesn't attend any meetings I'm in. She'll be gone by end of week. All technical decisions go through me with no second guessing. If you override me again, I walk immediately and keep whatever advance payment I've already received. Agreed. And I want it in writing that when this is over, the board will formally acknowledge that credentials aren't substitutes for competence. I want a statement that experience in healthcare software matters more than an MBA from a fancy school. I want them to learn this lesson. Richard hesitated on that one, then nodded slowly. I'll make sure that message is clear. When do you need me to start? Right now. We have clients calling, engineers waiting for direction, a product launch that needs to be salvaged. How soon can you come to the office? I looked at my watch. Almost 5 p.m. Tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. Have the first week's payment in my account before I arrive. $26,000. If it's not there, I don't show up. It'll be there. He left. I went back inside. My wife was in the kitchen. What was that about? Richard wants to hire me back as a consultant. $650 an hour. $26,000 per week. 1 month to fix everything Victoria broke. Her eyes went wide. Are you going to do it? Yeah, I think I am. Not for him, not for Victoria, but for the team, for the clients, for the platform we built. The next morning, I checked my bank account at 7:30 a.m. $26,000. Deposited. Right on time. I drove to the office. Walked in at 8 a.m. sharp. The engineers saw me and looked relieved. Victoria's office was empty. Her nameplate was already gone. She'd been terminated late yesterday, I learned later. Walked out with a severance package and an NDA. I spent the next 4 weeks systematically fixing everything. Called every at-risk client personally. Explained the situation honestly. Apologized for the confusion. Detailed our actual infrastructure security and compliance measures. Walked them through our processes. Rebuilt trust one conversation at a time. All 3 clients threatening to terminate agreed to stay. The 2 clients who'd suspended new deployments resumed their projects. We salvaged the product launch, 2 weeks late, but successful. My consulting bill for week 1, $26,000. Week 2, $26,000. Week 3, $26,000. Week 4, $26,000. Total, $104,000 for 1 month of work. Approximately what Victoria had been earning for an entire year. Except I actually knew what I was doing. If this story resonated with you, please share it. Hit that share button and spread these lessons about credentials versus competence. Check out our other videos on retribution stories for more workplace karma. Your engagement helps us keep creating content like this. At the end of the month, Richard asked if I'd consider staying permanently. New title, significant raise, full operational authority, whatever I wanted. I declined. I'd already accepted a position with a healthcare software company across the country. Better role. More responsibility. Management that actually understood the difference between education and expertise. 6 months later, I heard through the network that Richard had finally found a replacement for both me and Victoria. Someone with actual healthcare software experience. Someone who'd built similar platforms at other companies. Someone whose credentials included both an engineering degree and real experience doing the actual work. The company survived. Barely. But they learned their lesson the expensive way. Credentials matter, sure, but competence matters more. Experience at other companies means nothing if it's not relevant experience. And Ivy League MBAs don't teach you how to navigate the specific complexities of healthcare software. Victoria landed somewhere else within a few months. Another tech company. Another COO role. I saw her LinkedIn update. Apparently she'd learned nothing from the experience. Her new profile described her as a transformation leader who drives operational excellence through modern frameworks. No mention of the company she'd almost destroyed in 8 hours. As for me, I learned something valuable too. When someone tells you to know your place, they're really telling you they don't understand your value. And when that happens, the best thing you can do is leave. Let them discover how much they needed you and make them pay premium rates to fix what they broke. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't fighting. It's walking away and watching them realize too late what they lost. Then coming back on your terms, at your rate, fixing their disaster, collecting your check, and moving on to something better. Richard paid me $104,000 for 1 month of work to fix problems that would never have happened if he'd listened in the first place. That's the price of valuing credentials over competence. That's the cost of telling someone to know their place when you don't actually know what their place is. And that's why you should never assume someone's diploma is more valuable than someone else's decade of actual experience. Because when everything falls apart, the person with the fancy degree can't help you. But the person you dismissed as just an engineer, they're the only one who can save you. And they'll charge exactly what they're worth, which is a lot more than you wanted to pay.